The galaxy had seen wars before. Planets had been turned to ash. Fleets had clashed in oceans of fire. Civilizations had been wiped from the stars as if they never existed. But nothing in all that history could compare to what happened to Earth. It didn't begin with an invasion. No, there were no fleets blotting out the sun, no armies pouring into our cities. It began with a smile, with handshakes, with promises that sounded like hope. Dozens of alien species arrived in our skies, offering us protection, technology, and entry into the great galactic community. If we agreed to share our resources and cooperate for mutual prosperity, our leaders thought it was a miracle. Humanity had been reaching for the stars for centuries, and now the stars had come to us. The first treaties were signed on the steps of the United Nations building. Alien envoys shook hands with human presidents, prime ministers, kings. Cameras flashed, the world cheered. We thought we had stepped into a new golden age. We were wrong. The protections slowly became control. First came restrictions on where human ships could travel. Every voyage required alien approval. Then came the advisors' representatives from other worlds who were placed inside our governments to help us integrate. Their advice became orders. Their guidance became law. Next came the quotas. Metals, minerals, rare isotopes. Things Earth and its colonies could produce better than most were demanded in ever-growing amounts. Our factories worked day and night to meet the demands. When we struggled, they sent fleets to assist. Thought they were there to help us keep up. We didn't understand that they were there to make sure we didn't stop. And then one day we weren't partners anymore. We were property. It happened without a single battle. Humans were declared a labor-class species under the Galactic Accord. Every major civilization signed it. Every species agreed that we were too valuable to be free. We were strong, adaptable, resistant to alien diseases, able to survive in places most species could not. That made us indispensable. It also made us slaves. The chains they put on us weren't made of iron or steel. Were made of laws we didn't write. Debts we could never repay. And warships that floated above our skies like vultures. Not one species stood with us. Not one voice in that great alien council spoke for humanity. Our colonies on Mars and Titan were stripped of their resources. Families were torn apart, shipped to work camps on distant mining worlds where the suns never set and the air was thick. With poison, children grew up never knowing freedom, their lives measured in work shifts and rations. There were rebellions in the early days. Brave men and women who tried to fight back, who hijacked alien freighters or attacked patrols. Of them lasted. The reprisals were swift and brutal. Entire settlements erased from orbit, their names stricken from the records as if they had never existed. The galaxy thought we would break, and for a time it looked like they were right. For 20 long years, humanity endured it. Human ships carried alien markings. Our flags were forbidden. The old nations of Earth faded away into numbers on alien ledgers. But beneath the surface, something else was growing. It began quietly. In whispers passed between tired workers in alien factories, between engineers forced to repair ships they didn't own, between scientists and alien labs who had access to technology we were never supposed to touch. Those whispers spread slowly, carefully, like embers hidden in the dark. The first sign came on a mining moon called Varela 6, a small group of human workers. They refused to meet their quota. The alien overseers called in security forces, ouring reptilian soldiers armed with plasma rifles. That night, something happened. Nobody knows exactly what, because there were no survivors. By morning, the entire security complex was gone. Not destroyed in the usual way. There was no wreckage, no bodies, just a crater in the rock where it had stood, as if it had been erased from existence. The Accord dismissed it as an accidenta. Mining explosion, a reactor failure. But a few weeks later, another outpost vanished, then another. Always the same. No alarms, no distress calls. It's just silence. By then, the whispers in the camps had turned into something else. Story, a rumor. That somewhere in the shadows, humanity had been building something. It hadn't come from Earth's governments. They had been powerless for years. It had come from the people. From the engineers who memorized alien ship schematics. From the scientists who secretly copied weapon blueprints from the soldiers forced to serve under alien command who learned every tactic, every weakness, piece by piece, stolen part by stolen part, we had assembled something in secret. No one knew its name, no one had seen it. But the words passed from one human to another, quietly, carefully, like a prayer. We have a weapon. The galaxy laughed at the idea. They had crushed rebellions before. They had faced weapons before. We were just another subject race, no different from the dozen others who had tried and failed. But then, an entire alien. Fleet 30 warships patrolling near Jupiter went silent. Their last transmission mentioned an unidentified vessel. The officers on the Accord Council laughed at the thought of a human ship destroying their warships. Humans didn't have warships anymore, just rusting cargo, haulers, and stripped-down mining vessels, until the second fleet vanished. And the third, by the time the galaxy realized it wasn't a coincidence, it was too late. Humanity's patience had run out, the chains were breaking. The galaxy didn't yet understand the truth. We weren't fighting for freedom anymore. We were fighting for revenge. The Alien Council met in their grand chamber, a hall so vast its domed ceiling disappeared into shadows. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the tiers, their voices echoing in a storm of languages. Some were angry, others afraid, but most were simply dismissive. "This is a minor disturbance," hissed a serpentine delegate from the Cathari Dominion. "A human vessel, even armed, is no threat to the Accord. They are primitives." "Primitives who have now erased 3 of our fleets," growled a massive, fur-covered envoy from the Dravik clans. "I call for full mobilization. Burn their world if necessary." The council leader, a pale insectoid being with crystalline eyes, tapped a claw against the marble floor. The sound silenced the hall. "We will investigate," it said in a voice that carried unnatural calm. "If there is a weapon, we will find it. And we will end it before it grows." But the truth was, they were already too late. For decades, humanity had been preparing not for a rebellion, but for a war. Every camp, every shipyard, every alien lab where humans were forced to work had been part of it. Parts had been smuggled between worlds hidden in mining shipments. Data stolen from alien research hubs was encoded into songs and passed by mouth to avoid detection. They had built the weapon in pieces, far apart, so no one could understand the whole design. Only when the last piece was ready did they bring it together. Its first test was on Varela 6. The alien outpost had been chosen carefully assated. No civilian presence, a small but well-equipped security force, perfect for a demonstration. When it worked, when the outpost didn't just explode, but was erased without trace, humanity knew they had something the galaxy couldn't understand. The weapon was not large. In fact, by alien standards, it was barely a warship at all. No. It moved like nothing they had seen. Didn't show up on sensors unless it wanted to. It could appear behind a target without warning, deliver its strike, and vanish again before alarms were raised. Some said it wasn't a ship at all, but a predator. The galaxy began to notice patterns. Supply convoys that passed near human-populated systems stopped arriving. Patrol fleets stationed at old human colonies simply went silent. Communications blackouts spread like a virus. The council responded by tightening security. Work camps saw more guards, more surveillance. Humans were questioned, searched, sometimes executed without cause. But that only made the rumors spread. Faster, in the camps, the whispers grew bolder. People no longer spoke in fear, they spoke in hope. Stories passed from mouth to mouth about the ghost ship that hunted alien fleets. Some swore they had seen its leak in dark with no visible engines, just a shimmer of light in the void before it struck. Others said it was crewed entirely by humans born in the camps, trained from childhood to be its hunters. On a cold asteroid in the Carthus Belt, an old miner named Rion told the story to a group of wide-eyed children as they huddled around a heat lamp. "They think we're weak," he whispered. "They think the chains hold us. But there are humans out there right now, making them afraid to close their eyes. We don't need to run. We don't need to hide. We just need to keep working, and one day soon, they'll come for us." Meanwhile, the Accord dispatched one of its most feared admirals, Sarek Vorn, to hunt the ghost ship. His fleet was vast 50 warships, each bristling with weapons. He swore before the council that he would bring back the ship's wreckage as proof of human defeat. 3 days later, the fleet vanished. The report from the last surviving drone was short and disturbing. A distortion in space, a flicker of light, and then nothing. The ships were simply gone, as if swallowed by the dark. Panic began to creep into the council's meetings. For the first time, the word retaliation was spoken aloud. For the first time, they considered that the humans might not just want to escape, they might want to destroy, and far away. Hidden in the black between stars, the ghost ship drifted silently. Inside, its crewmen and women taken from every corner of the occupied human world studied maps of the galaxy. Every alien world that had profited from human chains was marked in red. They weren't striking at random. They had a plan. And it was only just beginning. The first planet on the list was not a military target. It was a trade hub, Zereth Prime, a shining jewel in the center of the Accord's supply network. Billions passed through its orbital stations every year. Its docks handled food, fuel, weapons, and slaves. Human slaves. For decades, humans had been bought and sold in the open markets of Zereth Prime. Auctioneers shouted in alien tongues as they displayed young men and women like livestock. Children fetched high prices for labor in the cramped maintenance shafts of alien megacities. Adults were sold to mining corporations and luxury estates. But on Zereth Prime, the Accord's cruelty was not hidden. It was celebrated. The ghost ship arrived without warning. Zereth Prime's orbital defense grid was considered unbreachable. Layers of automated guns, shield arrays, and patrol ships formed a net that no smuggler had ever slipped through. But the net meant nothing if it didn't even know the prey was there. The first sign of trouble was silence. One by one, the defense. Satellites stopped transmitting, and the orbital stations lost contact with their outer patrols. The main command tower scrambled every ship in range. But when they arrived at the coordinates, they found nothing, just drifting wreckage and echoes on their scanners. By the time they realized something was inside the defense perimeter, it was already too late. The ghost ship appeared in the shadow of Zereth Prime's largest station. It didn't decloak in the way alien stealth ships did. There was no shimmer, no distortion. It was simply there, as if it had always been. Its hull was a matte black that drank in the starlight, its outline jagged and uneven like a predator's. Teeth dotted in the control room, alarms screamed. Alien officers shouted orders, weapons locked on target. But before a single shot could be fired, the ghost ship's weapons lit the darkness. They weren't plasma blasts or missile barrages. They were something else, something the Accord had never seen. Bright needle-thin beams stabbed through the station's shields as if they didn't exist. Bulkheads ruptured, air vented into the void, and the station's central power core collapsed in on itself with a soundless flash. One station fell, then another. Docked ships tried to flee, only to vanish in blinding arcs of light. Within minutes, the entire defense network around Zereth Prime was silent, but the ghost ship didn't destroy the planet. Not completely. Instead, it broadcast a signal, one that cut into every channel, every cum screen. Every public display across the world below. A human face appeared. Scarred, grim, eyes like cold steel. No one knew his name, but every human recognized the look. You bought us, you sold us, you worked us until our bones broke. You thought we would forget. We have not forgotten. Every world that profited from our chains will answer for it. We are coming. The transmission ended, and the ghost ship was gone. On the surface of Zereth Prime, panic tore through the streets. Markets shut down. Ships tried to flee the system. But far worse than the damage was the realization spreading across the Accord. This wasn't random destruction. This was a message. In the work camps scattered across the galaxy, humans heard that message too. In the dark of the barracks, they whispered it back to each other like a prayer. We are coming. The Accord's high command met an emergency. Sessions some demanded an immediate strike on Earth, but others warned it wouldn't matter. Earth is not their base, one delegate said. They could be anywhere. The humans are using our own network against us. They know our routes, know our codes, and they were right. The ghost ship had learned the Accord's supply lines by stealing data from alien freighters. It knew where the fleets patrolled, where the defenses were thin. Every strike was planned to cripple trade, fuel shortages, and military resupply. The next name on the list was already chosen. And this time it wouldn't be a message. It would be an example. The next target was Kargath, a fortress world deep within Accord territory. Unlike Zareth Prime, Kargath had no slave markets or bustling trade hubs. It existed for one purpose: to build and store the weapons that kept the Accord in power. The planet was covered in black metal foundries, massive shipyards, and fortified bunkers. Its skies were choked with the smoke of war machines being forged day and night. If Zareth Prime had been a message, Kargath was to be a warning. Boom! The ghost ship entered the system, cloaked in silence, slipping between the sensor nets like a shadow. In deep water, the Accord's defenses here were brutal layered minefields, long-range rail cannons, and 3 planetary shield stations, powered by reactors the size of cities. Even smugglers gave Kargath a wide berth, but the ghost ship wasn't here to slip past. It was here to break through. The attack began with the outer patrol fleets. 36 Accord cruisers moved to intercept an unknown contact, a faint sensor reading that danced at the edge of their range. They thought they were chasing a decoy. In minutes, the decoy became death. The ghost ship accelerated to impossible speed, weaving between the cruisers with inhuman precision. Its weapons carved through their hulls in narrow surgical bursts. No wild barrages, no wasted shots. Every beam found its mark, severing engines, detonating reactors, splitting ships into lifeless halves. By the time the alarm reached Kargath's command center, the outer defenses were gone. The planetary shields activated, shimmering domes of energy wrapping the key industrial zones. The Accord's generals believed this would hold the attacker back. No known weapon could punch through them in less than hours of sustained fire. But the ghost ship's captain didn't try to burn through the shields. Instead, it targeted the reactors that powered them hidden deep beneath the surface. Somehow, impossibly, it knew their exact locations. The first reactor went down in a burst of light, and the shield over the northern hemisphere flickered and collapsed. Within seconds, the ship's weapons tore into the massive foundries below, turning them into molten craters. The second reactor was buried under a military district, protected by layered bunkers. The ghost ship didn't attack it directly. Instead, it struck the cooling systems, forcing the reactor to overheat. The Accord's engineers barely had time to evacuate before the core melted down, taking half the district with it. The third and final shield reactor was located under the central shipyard, where a new class of Accord dreadnoughts was under construction. This time, the ghost ship's crew boarded. No one on Kargath had expected humans to fight on the ground again. The boarding teams moved like ghosts, using weapons cobbled together from alien designs. They didn't take prisoners. Every Accord officer they encountered fell in silence, and within 20 minutes, the shipyard's command tower was under human control. The final reactor was rigged to overload, and the boarding teams evacuated. Moments later, the last shield dome flickered. Out. From orbit, the ghost ship opened fire. The shipyard was reduced to twisted wreckage. The half-finished dreadnoughts, once symbols of the Accord's dominance, became burning hulks, tumbling into the planet's atmosphere. And then, as always, the ghost ship was gone. In the aftermath, Kargath was left in chaos. Its weapon production was crippled, its shipyards destroyed, and its defenses shattered. For the first time in living memory, the Accord had lost not just ships, but the ability to replace them. Across the galaxy, humans in the camps heard the news. Some cried, some laughed. Many simply closed their eyes and let the thought settle. Into their bones, we are winning. But in the Accord's War Council, the tone had shifted. What had begun as contempt had turned into fear. This wasn't rebellion anymore. This was extermination, and the ghost ship wasn't finished. The ash of Varela-6 still clung to the edges of Captain L's armor when he stepped onto the obsidian parade deck of the Galactic Concord's Central Command. The hall was massive, a cathedral of alien stone and light, where banners of 100 species hung from the ceiling like frozen screams. Every species had sent its highest military leaders. The air stank of too many biology's pungent oils, sulfur breath, and that metallic temps of ozone the insectoid delegations always brought with them. At the center, on a raised platform ringed by guards, sat High Marshal Koresh, a reptilian, whose scales shimmered like molten glass. His 4 eyes tracked Thale as he approached. The silence in the hall was thick enough to choke on. "You have returned," Koresh said slowly, his voice the rasp of stone dragged over steel. "Where is the human cargo?" Thale's mouth was dry. He had practiced the words, but under those alien eyes, the truth burned his tongue. "There is no cargo, High Marshal." The murmurs began instantly, a hiss of fear and disbelief. Koresh's jaw tightened. "Explain." Thale swallowed. "The humans destroyed the settlement, not just our forces. The entire colony. They burned it until there was nothing left but glass." One of the insectoid generals clicked its mandibles. "With what weapons? They have nothing." "That's what we thought," Thale said, voice rising with a mix of anger and confusion. "But they used something different. It wasn't just fire. It was targeted. It was like the planet itself turned against us." An avian commander fluffed its feathers in irritation. "You let one primitive rebellion cost us an entire supply world." "It's not just Varela-6, Thale said. "No. 3 other worlds have gone dark in the last cycle. No survivors. No transmissions. Just silence." The murmurs turned into a low roar of voices. Koresh raised a claw, and the room stilled. "And you believe humans are responsible for this?" "Yes," Thale said. "But it's not just humans as we knew them. They've changed." Koresh's eyes narrowed. "Changed how?" Thale hesitated, remembering the burning streets. The figures that walked through flame without fear, the way they seemed to know where every enemy was before the fight began. They fight like they've seen the battle before it starts. They kill with precision, without hesitation. And they don't fear death. A silence fell heavier than before. Finally, Koresh spoke. "Then the whispers are true. The humans have awakened the old war blood." Thale frowned. "What is that?" Koresh looked over the crowd, his voice dropping into something almost reverent. "Long before they were slaves, before they were tamed, humans were known across the stars. As extinction makers, entire species fell to their fury. We thought that fire was gone. And now?" Thale asked. Koresh's scales caught the light in a flash of red. "Now, it burns again." Across the hall, some leaders shifted uneasily. Others looked hungry, as if they welcomed the challenge. But most looked afraid, because in the vastness of the galaxy, there were many wars. But only one kind of war could end worlds in a single season, a human one. If you want, I can directly continue with Section 6, where the galaxy starts to realize Earth's retaliation has only just begun, and the humans make their first interstellar strike. Would you like me to move to Section 6 now? The blast that tore through the Jari dreadnought still burned in Korra's memory. The explosion had lit up the void like a newborn star, blinding even the fleet sensors for seconds. When the glare faded, there was no wreckage, just empty space, as if the massive ship had been erased from existence. The galaxy had no weapon capable of that, at least that's what they believed. Now, the fleet was silent. No one sent messages, no one issued orders. Ships held position in dead space, their crews waiting in fear for the next impossible strike. The humans hadn't just struck back, they'd made every alien commander doubt the safety of their own armor. Korra's ship floated on the edge of the formation. She could see the scattered positions of the remaining vessels through the viewport tight lines, broken into jagged, uncertain clusters. The chain of command had shattered. It wasn't just fear of the weapon. It was fear of what? It meant the humans were no longer prey. "Captain," her comes officer whispered, as if speaking too loudly might draw attention. "We're picking up something." "To find something," Cora said, her voice tight. The officer hesitated. "It's not a ship signature, more like fragments of signals. Bits of transmissions from our own fleet," but he swallowed. "Hard. They're bent. Twisted. It's like they've been rerouted through the void itself." Cora felt her stomach tighten. "I think they're inside our communications net," the officer said. "Not jamming. Listening." Talking back. Static burst in the bridge speakers, but it wasn't random noise. It was a voice. Human voice. Calm. Steady. "You enslaved us," it said. "You took our children. You burned our home. Now you will understand what that feels like." Transmission ended abruptly. No threat. No demand. Just a statement of fact. The crew stared at Cora, waiting for orders. But what could she say? She didn't even know where the humans were. Every sensor sweep came back empty. It was as though they were fighting ghosts, and then it began. One by one, ships in the distance winked out, not with explosions, not with power surges. They simply vanished. Cora slammed her palm onto the console. "Track that! Where are they going?" Her navigator's hands flew across the controls. "They're not going anywhere," he said, voice shaking. "They're just gone. There's no debris, no heat signature, nothing." The fear in the room was no longer a quiet hum. It was a living thing, pressing against the air. Officers, who had once mocked humans for their fragility, now looked like prey themselves. Eyes darting to the black beyond the viewport, as if expecting to see it open up and swallow them. Cora thought about the stories whispered in the slave markets, when humans were still broken and scattered. Tales of something called Earth's Last Defense, a project so dangerous the galaxy laughed it off as myth.
Ow.
Supposedly it wasn't a weapon, it was a decision.
Allied.
A line in human culture that said, "If we cannot be free, no one will."
Captain.
The comms officer whispered again, pale as frost. "They're sending another message." This time the voice wasn't calm. It was cold. "You wanted Earth's labor. You wanted Earth's bodies. Now you will work for Earth's silence." And then Cora's viewport filled with movement. Ships not, in the traditional sense. These were fragments of metal, each glowing with a dull red light, swarming like insects. They weren't attacking yet. They were circling like predators testing their prey. Cora realized, a sick certainty, that these weren't missiles or drones. They were pieces of the ships that had vanished, shredded into weapons and set loose. The bridge lights flickered. A deep vibration ran through the hull, and somewhere, out in the dark, the humans watched. The Verilistic system lay in ruins. Every orbiting platform had been reduced to drifting shards of molten metal. The once proud banners of the Council species no longer fluttered on their planetary outposts, because the outposts themselves were gone. In their place were glowing craters and vaporized atmospheres. The survivors whispered about Earth like it was no longer a planet but a curse. Every fleet commander who had taken part in humanity's enslavement was either dead, missing, or too terrified to leave the fortified cores of their home systems. Even the warlike Vexery, who once claimed to fear nothing, now avoided human-controlled space entirely, on the bridge of the USS Dawnbreaker. Captain Elias Rourke stood at the forward viewport, watching the wreckage of the last Council battle, group drift into the void, as crew worked in silence around him. This wasn't the wild cheering of a victory when it was the quiet weight of a war finally ending, at least for now. The humans had not just won battles, they had shattered reputations, rewritten the political map, and ensured that every alien race remembered exactly what humanity was capable of when cornered. The Council had thought Earth would break under chains. Instead, Earth had turned those chains into weapons and wrapped them around the throats of their oppressors. A soft chime came from the comms console. "Incoming transmission," said Lieutenant Marlowe, his voice tight. "It's from the Council. What's left of them?" Rourke didn't move for a moment, then nodded. "Put it through." The hologram flickered into life, revealing the gaunt, pale face of High Regent Salax of the Gorthery Dominion. His once ornate armor was scuffed and dented. There was no entourage behind him, only the dark emptiness of a damaged chamber. "We surrender," Salak said, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. "Earth is to be recognized as a sovereign power, beyond reproach. The Council will dissolve all claims over your species and territory. We will also grant reparations." Rourke's jaw tightened. He didn't look away from the alien leader's eyes. "We don't want your reparations," he said quietly. "We just want you to remember what you did to us, and what it cost you." Salak swallowed but said nothing. The transmission cut out. For a long moment, the bridge remained silent. Then Marlowe said, "Sir, we've done it. They won't touch Earth again." Rourke finally turned away from him. "The viewport, they won't touch us because they're afraid," he said, "and they should be." He walked to the command chair and sat down. "Set course for Sol. It's time we went home." Dawnbreaker turned, its engines flaring. Blue, as it left the graveyard of council ships behind. But in the quiet hum of the ship's corridors, there were already whispers. The kind of whispers that history breeds stories of humans who fought not for glory, not for conquest, but for survival. Stories that would be told for centuries, in alien bars and human academies alike, and somewhere, deep in the cold space, between stars, those who had once ruled the galaxy now lay awake at night. Haunted by the same thought, they had seen Earth's fury once. They prayed they would never see it again.